Good afternoon. I, on behalf of the Arul University, we do have the proud privilege of having amongst us today Shri Arul Devji, the author of two good books. The first one being Into the Great Depth of Your Being, and the second one, The Flame Within. Our discussion, which has been spearheaded, facilitated by Arul University and spearheaded by Shri Arul Devji. Last week, we covered the first milestone on the path of the inner and outer evolution. And the first milestone that we tried to achieve, thanks to the guidance of Shri Arul Devji, has been the path of light. The second milestone, if I may use the word, which we are going to attempt and traverse, thanks to his able-minded guidance, would be the path of force. And as we've been exchanging notes right now, he did point out that this one is very subtle. So anything which is subtle would obviously mean that we are harnessing all our inner forces. And like what we say, in particular, physical, of course, is there, but the mental, spiritual, and the vital forces would all the more be called upon so that we get to fathom the depth of the force and explore the expanse of it. A couple of words about the honorable speaker, facilitator, guide, mentor par excellence. Shri Arul Devji is an author, radiant universal leader coach, and an integral educator. He has been in the field of leadership, education, and human resources consulting for the last 24 years. He's an engineer from the BITS, or BITS Pilani, as we call it, and he founded People First Consultants, a human resources consultancy in Chennai, India, way back in 1995, where he continues to play the role of the founder, CEO, and shaping the human resources all across. So today, let us invite Shri Arul Devji with a humble request to lead us onto this journey of self-exploration deep within with the path of force. Over to you, Arul Dev, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And you could just call me Arul as we interact. So we explored the path of light. And to very briefly, revisit us in terms of linking it back to what we are doing today, there are many ways to look at our evolution or connecting to the divine or any which way we want to talk about it. One is the path of light. In fact, there is this term that is called the mind of light, which is very, very advanced, very far, but yet it gives a clue. And what I was exploring last time was some simple understandings I have of taking the path of light to light, and how do we connect? How do we sit near light in any form, any source, any essence, and allow it to mold us? Okay. And we also briefly looked upon intuition. We ended a little bit about spontaneous resonance, and we could revisit back, and we could hold that as a thread constant. The path of force is a very interesting one, at least for me, because it's one that I admire and that one that I what do you say? I don't know. I know, for example, the very first time I was exploring these about 8 years back, we had 4 charts that we put in 4 corners of the room. Wisdom, harmony, power and perfection, and we were just doing an exercise amongst ourselves. What are you drawn to? So I went and stood beside the power of force. And then we did another exercise. So what are you afraid of, or what are you drawn away from? I went and stood against the same chart. So this is something which has a very endearing call to me, and yet often I feel that I'm not ready, to bear its force. And thus, it is a very subtle, it's a very, very interesting topic we will explore. And we will interact more, because I'm not too good in giving a lecture or something of that sort. I'm good more with interaction, because I bring something from what I've understood of my experience. We can talk and see what emerges between us. Now, let's take it like this. So when the moment we look at force, we look at will. Force and will. Force, will, and power, we take it in the same domain. Now, to begin the conversation, there are many wills and many forces that are existing. There's a will in our parts of being. Every part of being has a will. The physical has a will, the senses has a will, the emotion has a will. So there is the individual wills that are acting all the time, competing for attention, competing for its manifestation. But the story gets a little complex, because there is a will of the collective. Like if 10 people come together and they want to do something, it is mostly by name that we say, we are holding something in the collective. Most of the time, it is the individual will that comes forward, and it either converges or clashes and all that stuff. So there's a whole degree of will and force that is exchanged at the collective level. And the more individuals are advanced, the more clash of will also emerges. Very interestingly, is what I've been observing for the last many years, because that's somehow how it is occurring. But then we also have the will of nature. That is exactly what we are going through this year. We didn't predict what is going to happen, and something happened which is both throwing challenges and opening doors for new learning, new healing, new evolution. There's a will of nature. There's a will of, there are forces like in integral yoga, which is spoken about the vital beings. There are forces, which does have a human interaction, very powerful human interaction, and you could call it occult or whatsoever. There are forces, there are vital beings that are present all the time, and we coexist in a way. There are cosmic powers. Okay, there are wills of the gods. Okay, there are forces of the gods. Okay, every god, I think, this the gods. There's a mutual co-creation relationship between the gods and the humans, and there's a whole degree of force and will that comes from that. There is also the will of an idea, okay, the idea or essence. Like, so for example, there's a terminology that is used often by saying that it's an idea whose time has come. It's a very interesting phrase, that I heard when I was out of college by a couple of people. And that's a very interesting thing. If you take an idea, the moment the idea is presenting itself into the universe, it can come from the universal mind, it can come from the divine, whatever we say. It has its force along with it. It has a light and it has a force. But most of the time in the beginning, what happens is there is a war between the light and the force, the knowledge and the will. There's often a clash. They don't go together much. So in the first place, between the individual, the collective, the nature, the vital being, the cosmic forces of the gods, and first of all, there's a nice playground that is happening. And to top it, within each of this, within the individual will itself, most of the time knowledge and will do not go together. They are split. Okay. But at least theoretically, some of you may have an experiential understanding, but at least theoretically, it is said that there is an undivided will, the will of the Supreme, or the will of the Mother, or the will of the cosmic force, where it is said that it is undivided because the knowledge and will are united. So at least theoretically there is that, even if we don't have a direct experience of it. Now, the story happens between all this. Okay, the story of the path of the force happens between all this. Now, in a more simple terms, in my personal understanding, what is occurring this year is an action of force. This is just my personal take. Okay, and that could be an external thing of a pandemic or whatsoever on the background. But something is really so force. See, so for example, if you emit a sound, the sound has a force. Like they say, at a certain frequency, it can shatter glass. Okay, so a sound has a force. It propels something, it impacts something. Every word of ours has a force. Okay, whether you speak calmly or you speak with vehemency or agitation, the word uttered is a creative force. The word uttered is a creative force. It either creates something or destroys something. Okay. Now, the force is a way that things are from a larger level. Force is a way that things are destroyed, and force is a way that things are created. It's a natural process of letting go of stuff which is not evolving or progressing, and so there is like there's a impelling action, that is thrust directly on lives of people, lives of matter, nature, etc., etc. In my personal view, we are in one such container at this point of time. There is a steady action of force, and perhaps it is increasing. I wouldn't know. So this is the path of force. So the inquiry that I'm proposing that we take, and I also propose we do a bunch of short practices. Okay, these are practices that I'm learning, that I'm practicing for myself, and I'm sharing with a few people. So these are practices that we get in touch with force in the different realms and see what it is. So we will do a bunch of practices. But the inquiry I'm proposing is, can we be aware of our will? Now, just as I kept myself a little free today morning, and I was just, one of my favorite books is the Letters of the Yoga. So I was going through the volume 4, and there was a small section on will. And very interestingly, it is categorical that Sri Aurobindo says that will. We need to bring the will. Otherwise, we are often consumed by our own lower nature. We're consumed by the wills of people. Like, so for example, I often make a huge error in my own individual sadhana and collective work that I do. And my guide pulls me up often. And that error is, I sometimes am so over involved with people, doing a lot of courses, guiding people, that I start living in the lives of other people, because one way or the other, I finish a session, then I'm doing something, their thoughts keep coming in. And even recently, she gave me a feedback that the same difficulty is going back within you again, and you need to be primarily living in the world of the cosmic force. Okay, so how do we become aware of the forces that are acting in us? How do we keep our alignment? The primary exploration I would like to make today, around many other things that we will discuss around this. The problem is about disconnection, the disconnection of our individual will from the cosmic force. That could be high. But at least how do we begin our efforts of bowing down to just the same thing that I spoke last time? How do we bow down to light? How do we bow down to light and become a person who adores light? In that manner, how do we also bow down to force? How do we bow down to the higher will? And how do we recognize the higher will and submit to it is the exploration that I would like to make with a bunch of conversations and exercises. So before I begin, is there anything anybody wants to ask or share to add on to what I opened up?
Very, very thought-provoking. In fact, if I may say so, it is almost like an invocation that you have done, sir. I could relate to what you just said in one way, because this year in particular has been something what you set the tone with. When the will of nature, the challenges, the learning, the force that you just mentioned, there's a certain duality, and this duality of both creation and destruction or shaping up if we look at destruction in a more positive way. And amidst all this conundrum and the theater of life, I think you did also mention that when you get too much involved, with compassion in mentoring, it might result in living others' lives, and this is something which I think is all about empathy. And thanks to this journey into the force of, I would say, different forces for that matter. And in philosophy, I could recall one term which we know as kaya pravesham. I think that is also something which I relate to what you just mentioned. And I think it is a logical and an organic outcome of what you discussed last week with us when you were discussing about the path of light, and today when we are talking of path of force. So there is a connect, and the connect is the light would shape up, and like what you said, this spontaneous resonance. And through that journey, the next, I would say, milestone would be that of the path of force. And I think that does make a lot of sense to me in particular. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Anybody else before I move forward? Okay, ready for exploration. Okay, all right. Okay. So I'm actually going to do a bunch of exercises. That's how I propose we explore. Now, the ideal is when I hold a will. See, there is a necessity of holding an individual will. Like sometimes I've seen people talk about the path of surrender. They say that I'm now going to surrender. But to surrender actually means, in my humble opinion, that surrender is equal to a direct connection with something. Okay. And then something is directly flowing through you. In that moment, surrender fully works. But if one is not fully connected, and when we start surrendering, before that connection is fully established, without holding an individual will, often the same people who think they are surrendering to something like the divine will come into the influence of, the will of others, will come under the influence of the will of, other beings and forces. So it's extraordinarily important to hold an individual will. Okay, so I want to just go a little bit deeper into that. Now, what do we mean by that? So even if we take the physical well-being, and both Mother and Sri Aurobindo have spoken that there are two paths. One is the path of suffering, and the other is a sunlit path. Okay, the sunlit path means that I don't necessarily have to go through the path of suffering or falling down and stepping back, or falling down and stepping back. One can consciously choose to be in the grace of the divine. Now, if we even were to do a sadhana on that, we need an extraordinary amount of will to do that. There is a lot of suggestions that come to us from the environment. Like, so for example, right now in this recent past, one of the difficulties, in my humble personal opinion, is that the same solutions are also enforcing a lot of fear. It's like, oh, be very careful. Okay. Now that itself is embedding a certain belief structure inside, which moves in. Okay. Now, even here, if we bring the path of force, will, and power, these are three correlated things. Do I consciously bring my will all the time to choose health? So we spoke about light. Light means clarity. Okay. Now, do I consciously bring the will to be on the path of clarity, or do I succumb to the temptation of ignorance, to the temptation of being confused? Confusion happens. But even in a confused state, there needs to be an aspiration for, can I get the clarity, and a certain concentration on a question that we are holding, or the directionality that we want. But very quickly succumbing, to the pleasure, I'm using this word consciously, the pleasure of ignorance or the pleasure of confusion is a weak will. The first is the shaping of our own will to stand on a path of inner and outer progress, inner and outer health, inner and outer well-being, whatever you want to say. That polishing of the will is like a moment-to-moment sadhana. I'll give you some very simple examples. I have had several people who are guiding me from the beginning. When I was right out of college, my first guide, one of the very simple things he taught us was, and he used to say it like this, in life, let's say we are living life like this, and something will happen and we'll get upset. Okay. Now, after you get upset, how quickly would you restore yourself back? Now, there are some times when we get upset, we live in that state for days and months and years. And his target for us, we were a couple of us getting trained to be a workshop or trainers like this at that point of time, 25 years back. His target for us was 2 minutes. Now, whatever the difficulty is, be it depression or sadness or whatever, it's not that we fulfill that all the time, but that was what he was telling us. He was saying that within 2 minutes, you should set yourself back. That is will, that is aspiration. To explore this journey deeper into force, to adore the universal force, first of all, we need to take responsibility for our will. It is not a very passive surrender of, hey, I'm there, now you take care. That is fine if you're totally connected, but most of us are not. And in such a case, the individual will and being on the path of the sunlit path, the path of light, the path of harmony, etc., holding that will is very, very important. And that itself becomes the first degree of sadhana. Is anybody in the group, anybody wants to add something to what I'm saying? Individual will.
Arul,
yeah.
I'm really so happy that you are talking about, because somehow time and everything affects us. I mean, I think about students also, and I think of myself also. This is the fact that we unknowingly, for example, I choose path of surrender, and I feel like devotional person. I try to go to God and try to find out the way, or I go for light. But that this is so true, that which you explain, that pleasure of ignorance or pleasure of confusion holds us back, and that holds our will. So it's very often it happens because we are not, at least I'm not trained, or I have not done any sadhana. How to do that? Number one. And the example which you gave, so beautiful, that in 2 minutes you come back and stand. But sometimes I'm talking about now my students also, and young mind, that they don't know actually how to come back in 2 minutes, because they are so much like cobweb happens around them, and it's so difficult that mind doesn't stop thinking. So what can we do?
Yeah. So let's go deeper into this. Let us say we take the life of a student. See, the force and will is there, everything. Like, one of the biggest difficulty any student who is going through beyond the 7th or 8th standard, right up to college and beyond, is the problem of the senses. Okay, which is really something is intruding. It is almost like, this is the way, this is my story. There could be several stories, Suddenly the human potential or the younger children are becoming so creative that, the certain beings and forces are not happy, and they say, okay, now let's destroy all this creativity and forces and sends them this addictions and senses and all that. So this is a story that I keep saying, whether it's true or false, it doesn't matter. So the problem is that everything has a will, so for example, when you're eating an ice cream, or for example, or, the major difficulty that students go through, gaming and, substance or pornography or whatever, the creators of all that are putting a will. Their will is to hook the person to keep coming back into it. It's a very clean programming and a massive force at a world level at this point of time. Hook you, full stop. And okay, now there is a will and a force behind that. Now, the problem is that the current education system is not giving attention to the will. Okay, we are really talking about knowledge and all that stuff. We're talking about learning. Great. We even talk about concentration. But hardly I have actually seen, or even when I grew up in my school or college, I don't remember any single person talking about consciously about the will. We speak about it once in a while. The training of the will becomes very, very important because everything in the world is competing for the human body. I mean, this is one thing that we need to keep in mind. Everything in the world, including the gods, are competing for the human body. Because from whatever I've understood this is not a direct experience, from whatever I've understood so far, and I also truly believe in that, the greatest substance on planet Earth is the human flesh. Okay, because it is extraordinarily superior. Okay, and I don't know if I said it last time, but I think I said this in this group only. But even Nalindra Kanta Gupta has commented that perhaps the human flesh could be the most tastiest because the divine lives inside that, or something like that. He's written in one of his books. So now the human is the playground for everything. You want a playground, that is the human. Okay, and everything is competing to live inside the human. Now, we are not, see, that the whole problem is inside us lives a factory of desires, a factory of beings, a factory of other people's intentions. It's a whole mess inside. Now, I personally, I was frank in my discussion as well. I personally have also succumbed by this thing of, I am at thy service, which means I'm in the service of the world. I will, whatever help you want, I will do. I've definitely lived my life a lot like this. By doing that, I've also allowed my will to be taken over by a lot of people for good things, right? But the purity of what I could be, the inner state or the contribution that I could give is primarily restored only, in my understanding, when our will is steady and connected with something larger, which is responsible for us. We could call it the supreme. So how we do it is by bringing attention to our will. Okay. Now, I was just sharing with Uma. Uma's my wife, There is something very beautiful Sri Aurobindo has written about will. He says, whether you have I don't know, I don't remember the exact words, whether you have an evolved will or a non-evolved will or a divine will is will. Just to hold it. And he gives some certain examples of people, they were not at all on the divine path or whatever, but they had extraordinary will. Will is so we need to bring our attention to the will. And the life of a student, many of them fall prey to depression and this thing for many years. Bringing attention to that will, and even as adults and students, bringing attention to that will and guarding that will, it's a fire. The will is a fire. And first of all, there has to be light in that fire. It's Agni. Agni is equal to light and will. Having clarity, what is my referral point in life? What is my referral point in life? Okay. So if I chose a path of light, then that particular light becomes my referral point. I'm going to introduce something now, and then I'll check with Kiran if this is clear or not. So another referral point can be an idea, that I want to give my life for. I will come to that in a moment. Against the referral point, you need to have a referral point to practice will. Otherwise, it's not possible. Against the referral point, any deviation that is occurring, we have to own up responsibility. We cannot say that, my spouse is not supportive. We cannot say parents are not supportive. We cannot say our teachers are not supportive. That is all a part of a weak will. A part of a strong will turn back and take responsibility, however difficult it is, and say that I am now taking responsibility. If I fall flat, to get up and be very clear and follow the path. This sunlit path, Mother has written quite a lot about it, that we can take the sunlit path. All this is a function of will, and there is actually no method. The method is every time the will weakens, bring the will and hold it very steady and strong. Does that answer, Kiran? Anything you want to add?
I think it's a wonderful thing. Because I'm going through that somehow, and I imagine that, young mind also go through continuously, because we are all influenced by others' will also.
Yeah.
And it affects so badly that sometimes you deviate from your path.
Yeah.
And yes, for me, yes, idea is the place where, I need to hold it and strongly. And I think you have communicated so well.
Yeah.
Very, very, very well. Thank you so much, Arul.
Yeah, I'll come to the idea in a moment, but so the moment we take one bit of a step into some collective work, at least my experience has been, and maybe I don't know if I'm doing it right or wrong, but my observation is the moment you put your step a little bit in collective work, you will get an intrusion of will. There's a lot.
What do you mean by collective work?
Anything. So, for example, you want to transform, I'll be frank with you. One of the things that I've attempted for 8 years, partially only successful, is to address this problem of senses with the students. Okay. And only partially successful, or for that matter, how do we live our life? Anything that you want to make a collective change for well-being, or you want to transform an institution, or you want to transform a company, the moment we move into any collective work, resistance will build up. This is the normal path, at least what I've understood. Maybe I need to learn more on this. So what that means is that the wills of people who want to follow through on the path could come supportive, but there will be weakening of wills and here and there, and that will affect each other. But also the wills of people. We cannot personalize this. The whole thing to understand is, if, let us say, Ram or Lakshmi or Govind are bringing a will which is not so supportive, it is not about Ram or Lakshmi or Govind. It is just about the collective phenomenon of certain things want progress and certain things resist it. So the moment we touch any collective work, those of you who are trying to do something, in a university context, trying to create a change, for sure you will bear the brunt of the collective will. Okay. Now, unless we learn to be very calm, very steady, very sustained around our will, generally we go through this thing of up and down and up and down and up and down, defeated and then getting up, and then defeated and then getting up. That's a normal process at this point.
Yes, that is so true. So true.
Yeah, I'm also making many errors on that, but the path of force is really about honoring her agenda, the agenda of a very calm capacity to hold a great power, to hold a great will without buckling, and at the same time not getting aggressive or losing oneself, blaming others. All that is a sign of weakness. You one way or the other you will fall into the same trap of whatever you blame, slowly that quality also will come inside you. It's that very calm, steady putting oneself behind her agenda, which is about the force around an idea, and I will talk about that in a few minutes, is the path of force that really works in a very simple manner. Anybody else with any questions or anything before I? Okay, all right. So here's so ideal is, there are two ideals, or rather you can say there are three ideals. One is I develop my individual will, like a sharp diamond razor, calm, steady light. Ideal number one. Ideal number two, I can connect to the cosmic force. I can connect to the divine force. I can connect to the divine power. It's quite high. Okay. If you can, and if you are blessed, fantastic. Okay. Now, if you're not, then we need an in-between phase. And that's what I'm going to talk about. Okay. The in-between is, again, what Kiran had opened up last time about spontaneous resonance, and what, Gaurav was also talking about spontaneous resonance, is whatever we resonate to, what does spontaneous resonance mean? Spontaneous is pre-thought. It is intrinsic, it is natural. Resonance means there is something that is, resonating within at a fundamental level. That is the divine's way of connecting to us. Through that phenomenon of spontaneous resonance, that's how the divine is guiding us, saying, okay, move in this direction, do this thing, because we can't directly connect. Some language is needed. At least from what I've briefly understood about this, one of the communication language of the divine is spontaneous resonance. So we just look at what are we resonating at this point of time. And this I request all of you to do it along with me. If you are just hearing me, it will make no sense. It will be of no use. But if you reflect and maybe interact, at least if you want to, then it will make sense. So the question is, what do you resonate to? Okay, and I'll make it simple. What is the purpose you resonate to? What is nature you resonate to? And take it at an essence level. Essence level means something deeper. So for example, somebody says, I really like dancing. Okay, so you take a step back and ask, I shared this briefly last time. I'm again touching it now from a will angle. Okay, somebody says you like dance. Fantastic. What exactly you like about dance? I like the beauty aspect of it. So beauty is resonating. Okay, now like that, it could be anything, whatever you spontaneously resonate to. Take the quality, the pulse, or the idea, or the purpose behind it as a referral point. And I invite one or two of you to give me an example of that. I want you to do it yourself. And maybe if one or two of you can interact with me, it will be nice. What is your resonant essence or idea? Anybody? You want to interact briefly?
I request everybody to participate because this is an experience actually I had gone through also. Yeah. So it will be wonderful if you can speak.
So the outside people can't speak, no? The 22
they
people?
Can. But if they want, they can put it most of them are on now.
Oh, okay.
On screen.
That's right. Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Right?
While some of us are still thinking about and...
No, don't worry. You just start interacting with me.
Resonate. I think beautiful cues you have provided. It's like what we say, Gagar mein sagar bhar diya sara. Very quickly. And specifically the three ideals that, as the force that you have very distinctively listed down is how do we make a progress in this direction? So the first one, we might as well identify and develop our own will. And the second one, which is what has been widely professed since time immemorial, that is connect to the divine, or, that is also one way. And the third one is when we are in between,
Yeah. Great.
I think you, in a very simple way, I think we all owe us our heartfelt gratitude to you, because you have, in fact, out of the duality, you have in a very simplistic manner, you have created the continuum. So usually when we are looking at forces, which are like positive and negative, the duality. And out of this duality, you have created a beautiful continuum. And in that continuum, I think, exists the state of resonance.
Yeah.
And,
so
that is how I would look at it from my basic schooling in sciences and then in management and literature as well. Yeah. I look at it as a beautiful amalgamation of different disciplines. And this construct has got so many interpretations which are now slowly unfolding themselves to me. I'm a bit overwhelmed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. I'll just check with any one person at least. If you have something specific that you're resonating to, you could either put it on chat or unmute and share. If not, I'll carry on. Okay. Okay, maybe then I'll give example, and so for example, say you take so for example, I like to work with children. I'm going to take it from a very practical way, and I want to take it into the path of resonance and then show how we can work with the will. Okay, say somebody comes and asks, what do you there's somebody here, let me check. All life is yoga, and every moment opposite to practice unfolding the divine will. Correct. And the question I'm asking is, what are you resonating at this point? Okay, so for example, you resonate working with children. Okay, now that's a specific example, and that is true for me. I like working with children. And now you go a little bit deeper. See, the thing is, to go on a path of force, you need the light, you need the referral point. It is from the referral point that we can back our will behind it. So I like working with children. Fantastic. So what do I like working with children? Okay, I like to be with them and see, let us say, how they can evolve in a natural manner. Okay, so if I even put a terminology or a word around it, natural evolution is very resonating to me. Okay, it's something that I deeply admire, and I keep learning, I keep interacting. Okay, so there are many ways I could talk about this. So one thing is natural resonance. I'm sorry, natural evolution. So I resonate a lot to the idea of natural evolution. And even in the one-to-ones or courses that I do, that is what I try and facilitate. Now, the more detailed you go into, the referral, the more you very clearly take the referral point, the better is the practice of force. So I go even further. Okay, natural evolution. But how? What is really resonating about it? I like the path of sadhana. I like the path of practices. Okay, so which means that I figure out a practice. The practice has to be right. And then I do the practice. To the practice. By itself, the practice will be a ladder which will take me to where I need to go. So if I even detail this a little bit more, natural evolution following the path of sadhana or inner practices, this idea or this phenomenon is extraordinarily resonating to me. If you notice my own words, natural evolution, I told you, is resonating to me. But the moment I go into the detail, natural evolution through the path of inner sadhana is extraordinarily resonating to me, which means I'm hitting home somewhere, which means I'm born for this. This is the contribution that I can make into the world. This is something that I can keep learning. This is something that I can contribute uniquely into the world. So I'm hitting a light. I'm hitting the clarity of a essence or an idea. Okay, now, so far it's clear. Any doubts, anybody? So what I've done is I've taken a field. Behind that, I look at what is my resonance. And then I went a little bit more specific. And I got the clarity of what I resonate to a point where it's really resonating to me. I have light now. Okay, is this clear? Anybody?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Now, what I've learned over the years, in the beginning when I was doing this, I stopped here. Now I'm learning is that, remember what are we trying to do? We're trying to link the individual will to the divine will. And since we don't know the address of the divine will too well, we're trying to aim it at the divine will. It's going and landing on somebody's doorstep. It's going and landing into some other forces. So somehow our rockets are not aimed very well, So since the rocket of pointing our, individual will to the divine will, we yet don't know the method. We are using a support structure, which is the essence or the idea. Now, what I have found is lift it to its universal dimension. So which means the natural evolution in the path of inner practices or inner sadhana or whatever, normally when I connect to it, I connect to Arul's way. This is how Arul has done. This is how Arul has learned, etc., etc. And this is how, so it is all coming from a personality of Arul, which is not so great. No matter how great your life has been, it is not so great. So I drop it. I take Arul out of the picture. And now what I have is just the essence itself. natural evolution through sadhana. That's it. And then I take it to the universal dimension. I see this phenomenon happening across the world. From time immemorial, the human species is evolving. Masters have come and they are here. They call avatars are people who come here. They take the toil of the humanity and they're doing the same thing, natural evolution through. Masters also do inner sadhana. Like from the work I've read about Mother, she has been doing sadhana 24/7 at a very old age. Sri Aurobindo was the same. They're not masters and thus they're sitting and giving darshan. No, they're actually doing a hell of a lot of a sadhana, over and beyond what we can imagine. So I see the phenomenon existing collectively beyond Arul. I tune into that frequency, which means that idea has a will by itself. I tune into it. If I tune into Arul's idea of this, it is impotent because I have my own past. I have my own ups and downs. I have my own memories of how I have messed, guiding with others. Sometimes it's landed correctly, sometimes it's not landed correctly. So all those things come. So it is an impure field. When I connect to something, I need to connect to a pure field. Because if I connect to an impure field, I become contaminated in the process as well. So I lift this resonance to its universal dimension, which is the collective phenomenon of natural evolution through the path of sadhana. And I, as an instrument, tune into it and I connect to its will. Will of what? Will of the essence that I have taken, which is natural evolution. I connect to its will. This is step number 1. Is it clear? Not clear?
If you permit, may I ask one more question?
No, please. I'm very happy somebody is asking, so that I can, please, yeah.
I'm really hesitant, but one question occurs into me is like, I got it, essence of will. I mean, resonate with what I am resonating with. So will of essence is required. Once I'm into it, this is, I'm going forward, I mean above. My question is like, when I'm connecting with it, how I remain connecting with myself, I mean that essence, will of essence, and also, be part of that collective will. Because others' will of essence will be certainly different than what my will of essence is. So how we harmonize between two, and there is always a fluctuation. That is what I have observed.
Correct.
And we don't want to impose, or you understand what I mean.
So how to hold it individually? We are going to do 4 practices now. We're going to do actually 4 practices.
Yeah.
And then how do we harmonize with others? It's a very complicated step. This one is easy. That one is more difficult, because when we are harmonizing with others, there is a condition of harmonizing, from what I've understood, which means if 2 people are coming and harmonizing something, both of them need to hold their individual essence without compromise, and then they have to combine together.
Yes.
Okay, now here is where I see the biggest difficulty. Many of the people I've seen on the spiritual path, some of the people who are so-called advanced, they can't get together with another person.
Yes.
So when they come together, some frictions happen. So this is a big problem, which means we have not learned to do this. So the method is that, so we will do the 4 practices now. Okay, but how to harmonize, at least what I'm starting to experiment quite poorly at this point of time, because I've learned individual better than collective, and I'm going into the collective more and more at this point. The essential thing is both need to hold, and then when you harmonize it, something is born of greater force. I've had brief experiences of it with people, and I will not mention the context and the names. I've had once an experience of this, that the essence of me that I was holding and the essence of another individual, we were working on something deep for half a day. it merged, and something was extraordinarily magical in the environment for days and months together. I've had experiences of it, but I have not yet tasted, like what Mother and Sri Aurobindo work together, like in that sense. But that is the harmonizing of essences, which means steadfast, at least two people, can they hold their essence without compromise and allow it to merge, allow it to merge, allow it to merge. Many people have done this. It's not that people have not done this, but some people have a partial success, which means one person's essence will stand high, and to accommodate another person will bow down on their essence. That is not success. It is holding both essences, and even if we fail 1,000 times, if it merges briefly or long, then is birth a collective force which is far greater than what we can imagine. I've had brief experiences, so I know what it is, but yet I don't have a full success on that, and I do hope to get that in some time.
Great.
Okay. Thank you so much for the question. Yeah. Okay. So we'll go do 4 processes now. Okay. Now, to do the 4 processes, you should have done this now, which is that, what I was saying, at least have one essence that maybe I'll keep quiet for 2 minutes, or maybe I'll guide you to that first. We'll do that first, and then we'll do 4 processes. By the time it will be time to go for our. Okay. So if you can close your eyes for a few minutes, and we will just revisit what we did. Close your eyes for a few minutes. And I just want you to look at your life at this point of time, your life and work, the people whom you're interacting with. I'm just going to keep quiet for 2 minutes. Just look at one thing that you resonate. It could be the nature of somebody. See, somebody is very compassionate. It could be fine. Or it could be the purpose that somebody is holding. It's not about you holding. It's not about evaluation whether you're holding it into your life or not. It's what you resonate. Just pick one quality or purpose you resonate and take it to its universal point. I'll keep quiet for 2 minutes. Whatever it is, even if you get 0.01% clarity, it is fine. Whatever you're resonating, take it to its universal dimension, which means at a larger level how it is being, how is that phenomenon occurring, and connect to its will, which means that essence itself will have a will of existence. Just connect to that will. Okay, we can open our eyes. So this is base step. After this, we'll do 4 small practices. Okay. Anybody wants to share on the chat what is your universal, what is the resonance and what is the will that you have taken at the universal level? If anybody wants, I'll just wait for a minute. Maybe you're very shy because it's the same institution, so you wonder, if I share this, what will others think? Maybe it is a function of that, God knows. Okay, I hope you have something, so we'll do the practice. Okay, now. Okay, thank you. Yeah, you can also send me privately, some if you want to, yeah. So that if you feel that others should not judge you or whatever, send it to me privately, and I will take a look at it if you want to. Yeah, I'll just wait for another minute if anybody wants to share something via chat privately or whatever. Yeah. Okay, all right. Do have something, and we'll begin now. As I said, these are very subtle practices, and I'm only experimenting at this point of time. Okay, I'm learning and experimenting at this point of time. So the first practice will be, see, first of all, I hope it's clear. So for example, again, repeat, you're taking the will of the essence at a universal level. So if you take my example, there is a natural evolution following the process of inner sadhana. It's the phenomenon that exists on a collective, and that has a will by itself. I connect to it. Okay, let us say, I'll just take some random examples. Let us say somebody's resonance is compassion. Okay, now any essence or an idea, take it at an experiential level. If you just take it at a thought level, it is not so, the felt sense is not so great. So if you take it as a compassion, you take the compassion at an experiential level and you raise it up. So compassion at a universal level is how the divine grace is on us. The nature of the divine grace is compassion on us. Okay. And that is how parents are, mothers are, etc., etc. So you take the compassion in its purest point and connect to its will, the will of compassion, the force of compassion, the power of compassion, whatever word you want, and connect to it. Okay, so which means the state of compassion and the force behind it, the will behind it. It can be, same is true for anything. It can be beauty, it can be anything else for that matter. Okay, now what I want you to practice is connecting to that will of the universal essence. Hold that connection in the cave of your heart. So, to give a little background, I mean, some of you may be familiar. The cave, the surface heart is the emotional heart. The cave of our heart is the divine chamber. Yeah? So, which means you can do your puja here. In the divine chamber, you can do any puja, no? So, because it has a consciousness which is full of silence. Behind the surface heart, there is a tiny space which is very quiet, which is very calm, which is very potent in that sense of it. So just taking your attention inside there, go within the heart to the cave of the heart where there'll be a little bit of quietness, etc. I'll guide you. And there connect to the will of your universal essence. Is it clear, not clear?
Yeah, it's clear to me, certainly.
Yeah. Okay, others, I don't know.
It surely is.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we'll begin. I'll guide you through it. So just close your eyes. We'll do it for about 2 or 3 minutes. First, just connect to the will of your universal essence in its most ideal and pure form. You are a bhakta of that universal essence. You're an adorer of that universal essence. Whether you're worthy or not, forget it. You're worshipping it. You're worshipping that universal essence and you connect to the force or the will behind it. And then move your attention within the cave of your heart, which means right at the depth of your heart. Go there. And how you locate it is like sometimes the heart could be filled with other people and our own memories and all that. Bypass it. Go behind to a place which is very quiet, at least a little bit quiet. Stay there and there invoke this will of your universal essence that you like. There you invoke and connect to the will of the universal essence and stay like that for 2 or 3 minutes. Another 30 seconds. And then slowly come back and open your eyes. Take your time. Any questions? This is first. We will do 3 more short practices. Okay. Any questions? Any sharing? Okay. Now, practice. Now, practice 2. Same thing. Do it in the region above the mind or above the head. Okay. Now I'll give you the first. We did this, but first the practice of, see, when you close your eyes, normally we bring attention in the mind region. I learned this practice from Mother's book on education. There's a interesting practice that I read. Basically, what she says is, you have your thoughts, take your awareness. I'm saying in my own words, take your awareness and go higher and above in the region above the mind. You'll have to do it inwardly, and you'll come to a place which is rather quiet. Thoughts are less, and then wait there, wait there, wait there. When visitors come, visitors are intuitions, and then she says, when the visitors come, keep quiet. They themselves will cloak themselves in words, and they'll come to you. When I read this practice, I did not understand it. Like, in a sense, it's very good to read. I don't know how the experience was. I pursued this for 1 year. Whoever I met in Orwell or whatever, I'll ask them, hey, what is this? How are you doing it? How this is to be done? And after that, I found this one of the most simple and a direct practice of calming your mind, opening to intuitions. Okay. And it's as simple as what I said. So what we'll do is, I'll guide you through this process of going above the mind. We will do that. And there, when you go above the mind in the inward gaze, there invoke the will of your universal essence. You already know what is the will of the universal essence now. Just as you invoke in the cave of the heart, invoke it in the space above the mind. I'll guide you through it. Now, when you're doing the practice, you will get distracted. There'll be some thought that will come or whatever. Don't bother about it. If you get distracted, just go back and continue the practice. Okay. So close your eyes. Bring your awareness to your thought region, typically your forehead or temples. And slowly move your awareness upward and above your inner gaze. It's just a very simple thing of moving your inner gaze higher and higher and upward till you come to a point or space where the thoughts are less and it's a little bit more silent. staying there, whatever you've got, that little bit of quietness or silence, there invoke the will of the universal essence that you resonate. Invoke the will there and keep your awareness upward into the vastness. Continuing to keep your awareness in the silence above. Connect to the will of the universal essence and keep your awareness pointed upward. Okay, and then slowly come back and open your eyes. Any questions, any sharing?
I think maybe next time when you'll be visiting us physically, we'll share more. But it is this practice gives lots of, I mean, it silenced down a lot, and you get into the center of what you are experiencing. So
2 more short practices. Okay, now what you'll do is bring your awareness, just a second. I've got a private message that I'm just reading. So yeah, I'm not going to read out because the person has sent it privately. So the experience that you have, so whoever has sent it to me, so there's a certain color, and there is a certain fluid that comes. So these are all, so see, when you're accessing here, this is the domain which is quieter, which is above the mind. Okay. Now, when we are connecting to the will of the essence and we hold it here, you get a certain experience. When you hold it here, you get a certain experience. So whatever color and substance that is coming, just check what is the quality of it. Sometimes we cannot interpret it because we may not have that advanced understanding of colors and symbols and substances. All you're checking is what is the quality. And if the quality feels in the right direction, simply just connect and allow it to do its work. Okay, so this is response to the whoever has sent me. Okay, just just check the quality. If the quality is positive or divine or right, just quietly connect to it and it'll do its work. That's all. Okay. Now, the third practice is, the feet. We have feet, right? If this is our feet, the sole of the feet or the arch of the feet, I want you to put your awareness there. Reason being is this is also an important point. Okay, the feet is very important in the human psyche of consciousness. The feet is touching the earth. The feet is the grounding element. Okay, it also has healing properties. It has certain other properties as well. So what I want you to do is, now I'll guide you. We'll put our attention on the sole of the feet, and from there we will also connect to the will of the. People consider the feet, oh, your feet has touched something, it is impure. No, the feet is extraordinarily pure. Like, so for example, in the traditions, the feet of the master on the head of the disciple is supposed to be considered as the greatest blessing. And I've read several descriptions of how from the feet, something goes into the ground and all that stuff. So the feet is very important. We'll connect to the feet and then we'll do the same thing. Connect to the will of the universal essence. I'll guide you through it. Close your eyes. You can do it with cross-leg position or feet on the floor. Either way, it doesn't matter. Bring your entire awareness to the sole of your feet. And first connect and be with it for like a minute. And you're going beyond the sensations. This is a space that is connected with the earth. You're going beyond the sensations. And you're trying to just sense the inner quality and just be with that for a minute. And now, keeping your awareness on the sole of the feet and its connection with the ground, there invoke and connect to the will of the essence at a universal level. And then you can slowly come back and open your eyes. Okay, I'll wait for a minute. If anybody wants to message me privately or tell me whatever your experience, I'll just wait for a minute. Okay, we'll do the last practice and then I have to put it all together as to what this exploration was, and I have 12 minutes for that. Okay, so last practice, same thing, do it in the navel region. The navel region is our, is the dynamic energy center, the will force, the central vital, so to say. So the same thing, bring your attention to your navel region, and in the navel region or from the navel region, connect to the will of the essence itself. Connect to the will of the essence at a universal level. Now here clearly we are linking our individual will with the universal will. We have raised we have touched it at the universal points, but now we are linking the individual will with the will of the essence itself. So close your eyes, bring your awareness to your navel region. And actually, if you learn to keep your awareness very subtle, you will see a force in that. You will sense a force in your navel region. It will sometimes be going outward, sometimes inward, sometimes it will be a steady force. Connect to the force in the navel. And now simultaneously also connect. Your awareness is on the navel force and also connect to the will of the essence itself at a universal level. Slowly you can open your eyes. Okay, so I'll kind of put it together in a very simple way. The path of force is adoring force, will, and power. Okay, we cannot transform our lives unless the conscious force is backing us up. And even the questions that Kiran was asking about the collective, It's not about our individual efforts that we can change the collective, but if we can connect to the conscious force, even if two individuals connect in a collective, I think at least it needs two individuals in a collective, from what I understand. And then the conscious force starts acting directly. Okay. Now, how do we arrive at the connection with the conscious force? Is just by aspiring. We need to have a very steady aspiration here, adoring force, adoring the undivided will, which is the cosmic, which is the supreme highest. It's just an adoration. But in the beginning, we are not there. And thus we use the intermediate path of essence. Whatever is resonating to us, and it will not vary too much if we do it rightly, it will be a few things that deeply resonate. Connect to it, be clear about it is the light. Keeping that as a referral point, taking it to its universal dimension and connecting to its will is the path of force. And slowly that will open up. See, there are the divine can be approached in thousands of ways. That's the whole beauty. This is the whole beauty of the Hindu tradition also. There are thousands of gods and, they one way or the other lead if we follow the full path. Similarly, there are thousands of essences in the world that could be there resonating to people. Every essence, if we take it and open it upward, it will take us to the same source. Okay, this is the whole beauty of the path of essence. But it has to be a living experience. If you make it into a memory, it will not work. In the present moment, when we connect to the resonance, we connect to the essence in a universal dimension, take the will of it. We hold it in the cave of the heart. We hold it above the head. We hold it in the sole of the feet. We are stabilizing it. And then when we also connect it to the navel, which is actually symbolizing that will one with the divine will. There's a flower essence like that. Mother's name, will one with the divine will. Slowly that thing can open, and we need a very steady aspiration. This is what I've understood so far about the path of force in a sadhana perspective. And this is what I'm doing. I've shared with you all. And if there's anything that you want to share back, it's very easy to reach me. I'm there on Facebook. I'm there, all over the place. We could continue to chat, etc. So thank you so much. Over to you, yeah. If there's any question I can take, or I've shared what I could share.
Gauravji, are you able to? Okay, you're there.
Okay. On a personal front, I must say that I could visualize more than a couple of things and some experiences. And I think the most important takeaway out of this session, Arulji, has been that the path which hitherto appeared very abstract many a times and quite often does appear much more enlightened, much more feasible, if I may say so. And although there are different ways and means which many practitioners and many philosophers have professed and shown us the way, but the sheer simplicity with which today you kind of did the hand-holding, at least to me, I could sense it, and I thank you for that, did make this path of force apparently feasible, doable, and probably something to strive for in the long term. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you.
Arulji, we have Path of Harmony.
Path of Harmony, I'll come. No, don't worry.
So, we will not allow you to go.
Actually, I must also, I think I owe my sincere gratitude to Kiran ma'am as well, because even though I could not join in the first phase of the journey because of academic, unavoidable circumstances, but then now that that gear is in a way disengaged for the time being, whereas now the assessment part is to be done. Anyway, that matter apart, I think the most important way of being is sometimes to experience the journey. You know, you don't have to eventually and all the time be looking for the means and end kind of theory or approach. So that is also something which I have experienced in the discussions which have been facilitated by Kiran ma'am, and it keeps on coming back as an experience to me. So I have to thank Kiran ma'am, and I have to thank you as well, sir, today. So
thank you so much, and we'll meet with harmony. Yes.
right. And as you said, the trilogy, I think in a way I do see the trilogy in the thought process that you have proposed.
Yes.
And just like the number 3 is very magical. I'm experiencing more than what I would actually get to share here at this forum, because it's, to me, I think it is more of cut chewing. Go back, introspect, probably try and pen down what I've been experiencing. The baggage is heavy, and I have to, again, time and again, I have to thank you for that. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
you, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We'll meet again. So, thank you.
Bye-bye. See you.
Yeah.
Thank you.